Hello and welcome to LionWing Talks, a weekly show where we discuss all things LionWing, tabletop games, Japanese games, and localization. I'm your host, Bradley Hailstorm, founder and president of LionWing. This is episode 28 of LionWing Talks for August 11th, 2021. If this is your first time joining us, hey, welcome. Thanks so much for checking us out. We've had a lot of folks joining Discord, following us on Twitter and Facebook. I'm assuming it's because the ad campaign we're running right now for Picaresque. So if this is your first time checking us out, that's awesome. Hopefully you continue to check us out because this show goes down every week like clockwork and has since the first Wednesday of February of this year, 9 p.m. ET here on Twitch. Of course, if you can't join us live, you can always catch us on playback the next day, sometimes Friday, depending on my upload speed, or if the video uploads at all. More on that in a moment. On YouTube. So check us out on YouTube if you can't join us live. But if you can join us live, you should, because there's always some kind of chatter, nonsense, musings happening in the Twitch chat. You can also drop me a question and I'll answer it in real time because we do have a format to this show, and part of that format is a live Q&A. So last week we actually shifted things around. We shifted segments around, and we're going to be keeping with that format going forward. So if you are new to this whole thing, here's what you got in store. Once I'm done talking here in this intro, we'll move into our project updates section, where I'll give you updates on all of our projects, where things are in the queue, where we're at with production, where we're at with development, with translation, playtesting. Sometimes I might talk about what's kind of on the horizon or coming down the pike. Just all sorts of goodness as it pertains to our games. After that, we'll go into our Q&A section. If you want to submit a question to me, you can do that at any time throughout the week, and I will get to it at the nearest LionWing Talks show. You can drop us a question through social, be that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can drop us a question on Kickstarter. Most people, however, either drop their questions in Discord ahead of time because we have a separate channel just for the LionWing Talks Q&A, or they just ask their question while the show's going on, which, as I've mentioned many times, are sometimes my favorite questions because I get no prep time. I just have to answer them and you get a very raw answer. So that's always fun. If this is not your first time, and if you have already been well indoctrinated into the LionWing family, thank you as well for coming back and for spending your evening with me, or whatever time it is that you're watching right now, since some people do watch on playback. Tonight is not as stacked a show as last week. So last week was a long one. It was, I think our longest show to date, clocking in at 2.5 hours, which, because I shoot in 4K, was like a 70 gig video. And to get back to something that I alluded to just moments ago, episode 27 is not actually on YouTube yet because the file broke YouTube twice. I tried to upload the video twice over the past week. YouTube said, nope, not going to happen, bro. Try again. And I did try again. And they were like, not going to happen, bro. Do something different this time. I was like, oh, okay. So I ended up reaching out to YouTube because it was clearly it was not a coincidence that this thing failed to upload twice in a row. So it was time to talk to someone who knew what the fuck they were talking about. And that's what I did. And they said, yeah, you should probably compress your video and or try to shave off some time, make that video smaller. So okay, I guess that's what I'll do. So I actually just finished editing that video earlier today. So there's some compression. I did shave some segments off. So you'll notice there's some jump cuts in episode 27. There are no jump cuts at any point in any of these shows other than last week's show, because I am not a video editor at all. So I'm hoping to do a double upload overnight that will have this episode 28 and then episode 27 shortly behind it. So if you've been clamoring for what happened in last week's episode, fret not any longer, because it will be up there eventually, hopefully in the next day or so. It was a crowded show, and that's why it went 2.5 hours. I'm hoping to not go 2.5 hours tonight because I've got a moment in my schedule where I've got like an hour and a half, and I actually want to play some games for once. So that's what I want to do tonight, which means I got to get out on time and not spend 2.5 hours rambling, which it already looks like I'm not on track to achieve that objective. So there that is. Yeah, so I think it's about time that we jump into some things. We're not going to have as much news in the project updates section as we did last week, because last week, again, was just like lots of updates on every game. That's not quite the case this week, which is probably good. Let's see what's going on in the chat, because I have not been looking at it. Sorry, y'all. Hopefully you haven't asked me anything. Boom, boom, okay. This is Sai in the chat. Astute as always, Sai, that the intro gets longer every week. Certainly seems like it does. Okay, so intro is already 11 minutes long, Bradley. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is 6 minutes and 18 seconds, 19, 20, 21, not 11 minutes. Almost half that. So I think that is my cue, though, to jump into a segment proper. So let's talk about project updates, and I want to lead off with Wild Hunt Festival. So finally, Wild Hunt Festival is fulfillment is beginning for the UK. So, I feel bad for the UK, especially for this project, because the UK is the very last territory to get fulfilled. So sorry, UK folks. Couldn't do anything about it. I mean, I don't need to tell you this, but Brexit kind of has fucked everything up. So the good news is people started getting their dispatch notifications today. So some people may get their games as early as tomorrow. That's unlikely. But Friday, Saturday, and early next week, that's a thing that will happen for sure. So I'm excited. We had a pretty decent size folks backing from the UK. So it's not like, there's just like 5 people hanging out, like waiting for their game. No, like there's a sizable contingent of folks who are, who have not played the game, who are waiting on the game, and they're in the UK territory. So, it'll be cool for them to finally get to experience it. We've got a couple of them in Discord who are regulars, and I'm excited for you all to finally get an opportunity to play the game. This also means that, basically by the end of next week, fulfillment's done. That's it for Wild Hunt Festival. That's a wrap. We're officially on to the next thing. I mean, we've been on to the next thing now for a little bit, but officially, we'll be on to the next thing, probably the end of next week, which is exciting. So what does that leave for Wild Hunt Festival right now then? That leaves a couple things. DLC 2, as I've talked about, subtitled Pumu Rhapsody, progress is a little slower than anticipated there. So I was hoping to have DLC 2 ready. Initially, I was hoping to have it ready like end of July. I realized that wasn't going to happen, pushed it to August. I'm really hoping to get DLC 2 wrapped up and sent out to backers by the end of this month so that we maintain our August goal. But to be honest, resources are a little limited right now. So we are spread across a variety of projects. And as a result of that, we haven't had the person power to tidy up DLC 2. So translation on DLC 2 is done. Light editing has begun, but we've kind of been in that light editing stage for longer than is normal for us. And that's just because so many people are working on so many different projects. We're all pulled in 1,000 different directions. And unfortunately, something has to be, toward the bottom of the priority list. Like that's just the thing that actually has to happen. And DLC 2, unfortunately, has been put to the bottom of the priority list. But you have my word that we are committing to bring it up from the bottom of the priority list and to get that wrapped up and out to you all shortly, soon. I'm hoping, again, by the end of August. It might be September. It won't be beyond September. But, so we're prepping Picaresque and we're like officially 3 officiallys, which means it's really official. We're officially in crunch mode right now because we launch in less than 2 weeks. So there's a whole lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. We did a lot of good prep for Picaresque, so there's actually probably less rushing about. running around like idiots than some of our last projects, just because we did plan, I think, more effectively for this campaign. But it's still a Kickstarter campaign at the end of the day, and like these things are hectic and they're big and they're unwieldy and they've got a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of decisions that were made that get changed sort of at the last minute as you get feedback on certain things, or as you just think about things in a new way as it becomes very evident and very real that this thing's about to happen and be released to the public. And so you begin to shift around some decisions and you know go back on some decisions that you might have made, and some of that's happening. But by and large, this has actually been a very smooth sort of crunch period. I try not to have actual crunch. That's not really a thing that we go through, but every company in preparation for a Kickstarter has some kind of crunch. I just make sure that ours are, is manageable, and that people aren't wanting to pull out their hair. And the last thing I want is for someone to, I don't want to wake up in the morning and for someone to have messaged me like, yo, I'm out, I quit, this sucks. So, but still, we're in prep mode, and that means a lot of resources are being allocated to Picaresque's campaign. But it's not just Picaresque that we're working on, So we've got Midnight Saga. That campaign is going to be popping off just in a couple months. So, I mean, really, the only thing that's going to hold back Picaresque or hold back Midnight Saga, and the only thing that's going to dictate whether Midnight Saga happens in October, November, or December is the fulfillment of Gun and Gun. And then that campaign is pretty much ready, but we're still doing things in preparation to get the game printed. Like that Kickstarter, as I've talked about before, is finished. But we're still doing things in terms of production to get it ready for print, so that when we do bring it to Kickstarter, it's pretty much ready to go. In fact, I would say, barring Picaresque, because Picaresque is the most like print ready game that we've brought to Kickstarter, Midnight Saga is a close second. It's really right there behind Picaresque. But even with it being that close to being finalized, there's still like, we're still doing stuff to it, right? So that means like people have to actually dedicate resources and parts of the day to that game, not on a daily basis, but certainly on a weekly basis. So we've got Picaresque and all that goes along with that. We've got Midnight Saga and all that goes along with that. We've got another thing that's happening this fall that we're prepping right now that we haven't talked about yet, and we're trying to get that ready. We're trying to get Q1 Kickstarter of 2022 ready, which we're getting there on that. And then we're beginning to work on our biggest project yet. And so there's been a lot of like prep involved with making sure that everyone's on the same page for that particular project, because it is our largest yet. Picaresque is right now, in terms of the games that we've revealed, is our largest project to date. I mean, by a country mile. I mean, seriously, Picaresque is, when all is said and done, once we add like all of our Kickstarter stuff to it, we're looking at, it was somewhere in the ballpark of like 70 to 80,000 written Japanese characters. And prior to that, our largest project was like 7,000 written Japanese characters. So to go from like 7,000 to 80,000, that's a big jump, right? So for this upcoming project to be even bigger than that really kind of details the scope of what that project will be. Now that's going to be a 2022 project, maybe even a 2023 project, depending on how we shift things around. And schedules are always kind of a fluid thing anyway, but we're aiming for 2022, which means we've got our work cut out for us, which means resources have been allocated there. All of this is to say that DLC 2 is it's taken a bit of a backseat, but we will absolutely be getting to that, because all that's left is just to tidy up the editing, and then of course we've got to insert the new English text, but that takes about a day. So that's actually the easy part. It's the editing part. We've already play tested because the assets are already translated, so we've got the raw translations there and have for quite a while now, which is enough for us to play test. So now it's just about tidying things up and making sure that we've got optimal readability. So DLC 2 it's coming along, but slowly. We still have DLC 3 coming. Now that was always intended to be an autumn release. So far DLC 1 was our winter season DLC, our winter-themed DLC. DLC 2 is our summer-themed DLC, and then this one will be our autumn-themed. And that'll wrap up the rest of the DLC for Wild Hunt Festival. So I saw some people talking. I saw some people talking in Discord, I think just last night, about the DLC. And there were some questions about like who has access to the DLC. You know, was it just a Kickstarter thing? Do pre-orders get access to it? Does anyone get access to it? And so the DLC was really made as sort of a make good on Wild Hunt Festival being delayed by 6 months. And it was a make good to the backers for that. So the DLC has always been intended just for the backers. However, we will be selling the DLC. Even if you late backed, then you got access to the DLC. If you pre-ordered, you don't have access to the DLC. But we will be putting the DLC up on the LionWing shop, and I mean we're not gonna be charging much for it. But we did want to give backers like basically $10 free worth of content. So adjust your price accordingly in terms of what you think you'll have to pay if you want that DLC. The DLC is cool. I don't want to just keep it to Kickstarter, folks. Very rarely do I want to just have like Kickstarter exclusive content. Like I'll do Kickstarter exclusive accessories, components, kind of supplementary things. But I don't often like doing true content that you'll only ever be able to get through Kickstarter. But I mean, it will happen on occasion. So we sort of did it for our first campaign for Cinema Coliseum R, where we did offer a promo character that you could only get through the Kickstarter, and we don't offer it any longer. And we will be offering something in the way of exclusive content for Picaresque. But again, it's not something that is essential. And so if you don't find out about Picaresque's campaign until, long after it's been finished, it's not going to be one of those things where it's like, oh, fuck, I'm missing out on this really cool thing. Like, screw it. I don't even want that game if I can't get in, like, at all levels. It's not going to be something like that, but it is going to be, it's going to be pretty awesome for backers. So it's a fine line you've got to walk when you're launching a campaign on Kickstarter. Like, how do you ensure that you're treating your backers with the utmost respect and making sure that they're getting the biggest bang for the buck that you can, while giving them all of this really cool shit, some of which is incentive to back, and some of which is just like, hey, we're putting this in the English release and anyone's going to have access to it because it's that awesome. And then how do you balance that with like, and at the same time, you got to make sure backers feel special. That's important. They're the ones, especially for a company like LionWing, where we're basically a Kickstarter company right now. They're the ones who are keeping the lights on. You know what I mean? So I want to be able to treat them, and I want to treat them in the best way possible, which means I want to offer some badass shit through Kickstarter. And I also want to make sure that, not everyone's going to find our stuff through the Kickstarter. Most people do find our stuff through Kickstarter. And that's always a good sign, but inevitably there are plenty of people who find it, there are people still finding out about Cinema Coliseum R now. I was just filling some orders of Cinema last week, and that project was 3 years ago. So I want to make sure that they don't feel totally left out in the cold. You know what I mean? By like, oh shit, like backers got this really awesome chunk of content that I don't have access to and never will have access to. So it's this delicate dance you got to do. I feel like we kind of walked that line pretty well, which I'm happy about. But, tell me if y'all think otherwise. So DLC 3 will be coming this autumn. And like I said, that'll wrap up everything for Wild Hunt Festival. But as I've mentioned, we're not done with Wild Hunt Festival. We're not done with Cradia. Cradia is a universe that I'm committed to, that I'm dedicated to, that I love, that I see as a bit of an evergreen title for LionWing. And that's not just because the games are fantastic. That's not just because the game worlds are fantastic, but it's been a real pleasure working with Liner Note, as I've said many times. And when you find a localization partner like Liner Note, you don't want to let them go. You want to keep working together because it's a good partnership. We know what to expect out of them. They know what to expect out of us. Good communication. We see eye to eye in terms of extra content and how to provide backers, how to provide customers with the best possible experience that we can. They're open to feedback. We're open to feedback. It really works well, and their schedule works with ours, and they want to work with us, and we want to work with them. And so, this isn't just because DLC 3 will be sort of like the end of Wild Hunt Festival officially. We're not done with it by a long shot. So you can expect more Kradia. I don't want to say much more because I don't know what much more implies to most people. But definitely you can expect lots of stuff and lots of support for that franchise. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else that I want to talk about with regards to Wild Hunt Festival? So we've got the Tri-Guild Challenge. We posted an update Friday or Saturday of last week, and we are running a virtual league. It's essentially a 4-week league where we take a cooperative game and we turn it competitive. People sign up. They get placed into guilds. They work with their other guild mates to take down bosses each week. They earn points. They can achieve certain side objectives and add modifiers to their fight to make the fight riskier, but also more rewarding with points. They earn points for their guild. They earn points for themselves as well. The guild who wins out at the end of the 4 weeks gets some sweet swag. The top 4 points earners from each guild then go on to kind of like a final encounter, a final round, which is a 1-day event where each of the 3 guilds are represented, and each of those guilds fights this extremely challenging final encounter that's really meant to kind of kick your ass. And then whoever performs the best is considered sort of like the grand champions, and they get some really sweet swag, which we've outlined what all that swag is. If you want to read more about that, if that kind of thing sounds interesting to you, check out the most recent update on Wild Hunt Festival's Kickstarter, and we've got our league rules, we've got our league sign up, we've got the prize pool, we've got everything you want to know either in that post or in those documents that are linked in that post. So give it a look. And no one's really doing this kind of thing, taking a cooperative game and turning it competitive. So we'll see if it works. I hope it does. I think it's really cool. And I hope we have a good turnout. Let's see here. All right. Jake in the chat says, just as I printed it, I'll be sure to pick up the physical printing as well if that's the distribution. Yeah, so we definitely are. We're looking at how to handle the DLC once DLC 3 is out. Because I don't want to play too coy here because I do want to offer something physical with that DLC, but it all comes down to logistics and financials, right? Like, does it make sense? Does it make sense financially to print a DLC bundle? Kind of like a year 1 DLC bundle. Does that make sense or does it not make sense? And if it makes sense, if there's enough of sort of a groundswell of support for that idea, then certainly we want to be able to offer something print related. So that's in my mind. It might be in the cards. It really comes down to what is the desire. Some people, I think someone on one of the on one of my updates said like something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, but they're like, no one gives a shit about DLC for a board game. I'm like, all right, well, I know where you stand. Got it. But I do think that people are coming around to the idea of DLC for board games, and I think our DLC for Wild Hunt Festival is cool. Cool enough to like actually play and print off on your own, but I think definitely cool enough to have physically something official. So I'm thinking about that, Jake. I'm thinking about it. Uh, let's see here. The solo player guild on BGG does a lot of honor-based without prize competitive contests for solo / cooperative games. That's cool to hear. I think that's a lot of fun. It reminds me of achievements in games, be it on like Xbox or PlayStation, or even the achievements that we created for a stretch goal for Wild Hunt Festival. Achievements get you playing a game in a way that you normally wouldn't play it, right? Something like this, taking a cooperative game and making it competitive and sort of forcing you to pair up with another person, virtually, of course, but still, you're playing together, it makes you approach the game a little differently and think about the game a little differently. It's especially interesting when you're fighting for a guild and you want the guild to do the best because you want to be you want your guild to be the winners at the end because you want to get some sweet swag. And at the same time, you're thinking about your own points, right? So that you can get like, top tier swag for that final encounter week, or that final encounter event. So it does require you to conceptualize the game in a way that you probably wouldn't if this didn't exist. And I love that kind of thing. I really like when games can allow you to engage with it in ways that are, pardon the cliche, outside the box. Sai in the chat says, yeah, what's fun is that the same game can be viewed as totally different depending on how the points are tallied up. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's why we decided to do like secondary objectives and encounter modifiers, because then you can really take a situation that all people are going to be facing that week, and you can kind of tailor it to be your own thing, which then requires you to play it in a different way than everyone else is playing the game, and everyone's already playing the game in a different way because they're playing it, competitively, and now you're just adding another layer of complexity and playability onto it. And I really like that kind of thing. So we'll see if it works. There may not be an audience for this kind of thing for Wild Hunt Festival. Because I don't know if a lot of cooperative people generally want to play a cooperative game competitively, but we're going to find out. Rogue in the chat says, yes, hair's back and water's back. Yeah, hair's cut. And I'm drinking Dasani, so it's not my usual like flavored carbonated water. Okay, just let's see here. I hope you don't punish knockouts because Luca dies for your sins. Tank is my favorite. Yes. Just jumped on for LionWing Talks. Thanks, Rogue. Yeah, always good to see you in the chat. Lots of familiar faces tonight, which is nice, though I have also seen some new faces, some new names pop up here. I guess I'm not seeing anyone's faces. I'm seeing some new names mixed in with our returning names. Yeah, so Sai, you're saying I'm mitigated on the guild thing. If you haul ass but don't get anything because you're teammates, that's a pretty feel bad moment. It is. That's the nature of team games, right? Like you can perform flawlessly, and if your teammates don't perform flawlessly, if they perform just the opposite, then you're fucked, right? I mean, it's like that's the crux of every team sport ever. So we wanted to bring that in here a little bit. You can't just rely on yourself. You got to figure out how to make do with perhaps a bad teammate. That's part of the appeal, part of the fun, I think. Okay, so that's Wild Hunt Festival. Let's move on to Gun and Gun, and I don't have a lot to say about Gun and Gun other than to say I haven't heard from our printing factory, which isn't abnormal or anything. We did exchange some information I think it was last Thursday, because I think it was the day after LionWing Talks. We exchanged some information about shipping stuff, like boring information, and we brought back on Petra, who handled all of our fulfillment coordination and logistics and was our liaison with Fun Again. For this project, she worked with us for Wild Hunt Festival. I think that fulfillment process, sorry UK, has gone extremely smoothly. And so she was a big part of why that process went so smoothly. So she's going to be making a return appearance. And so she'll be coming back, helping out with that. So we had a little bit of communication with the printer about just like coordination of, all right, you need here's your FOB, here's your printing information, here's your port information, hook us up with, your fulfillment center. Let's discuss contacts and get contacts in contact with one another. So that kind of communication happened, which is always a good sign, because that really does mean, like you're coming to the end. But I haven't heard anything else in terms of like, are we still on for the 20th? Is production totally wrapped up? Because we were wrapping up, but like, are we done? Are the games on a pallet in their warehouse waiting to be transferred over to the actual port and, wait to be put on a container ship? I haven't heard that so far. It doesn't surprise me, like I said, and it's not all that concerning. Because in this current environment, you never really know what you're going to get anymore. And at the same time, even if we weren't in this current environment, not hearing from the printer just yet, even though you're kind of eyeing an August 20th deadline to have your games on a ship, still wouldn't be all that abnormal. So some printing companies are really sort of Johnny on the spot when it comes to keeping you in the loop and being fully transparent and talking with you often, and others just, they don't prioritize that, or they're just, it's not in their skill set, and they're not super effective communicators. That kind of thing just happens. So no news there other than we will be having Overheat on Tabletop Simulator this month, as I talked about. Sooner rather than later is the hope there. That's a very straightforward conversion. It's not like Embryo Machine, where we're having some issues getting that second player board into Tabletop Simulator and working as intended. So Overheat will be in there. We'll talk about an Overheat event next month. As I revealed last week, Operation Firestrike is now officially a thing. So I'm going to be figuring out some... I'm going to be figuring out some details on that and then sharing those details soon. I got our Operation Bulletstorm shirts in, which they're upstairs. So those are in. I'm waiting on the holographic stickers from the Operation Bulletstorm event that we held back in May. So Gun and Gun feels like it's in a good place right now. It feels like we're right where we need to be. I'm excited for people to finally play Overheat. Trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about Gun and Gun right now. No, I think that's it. In terms of Embryo Machine, since I just mentioned Embryo Machine. So we got a fan contest coming out. I was going to reveal the details today on stream. I'm actually going to do that tomorrow in an update. I'm sorry. So time has gotten away from me this past week for all of the aforementioned reasons. So I was hoping to reveal some of those details tonight. That's not going to happen. You'll have to wait till tomorrow for the official Kickstarter update. If you have played any sort of scenario-based game, I think you're going to know what to expect here. I'm looking for ways that people can engage with the game that they would not be able to engage with otherwise. I'm looking at having folks figure out how they can run a sort of a King of the Hill type of scenario, or a Capture the Flag type scenario. It would be a flag, obviously. Perhaps it's a mech. Maybe you want to put a story behind your scenario. Maybe you want to have specific objectives for each team to be able to accomplish. I mean, whatever your win parameters are there. I mean, these are the types of things that I'm looking for. It's nothing. This is nothing like earth shattering. You know, like I play a lot of Warhammer, and I play a lot of Lord of the Rings strategy battle games. So if you've played any of those games, if you've played Kill Team's on my mind because Kill Team Redux or Kill Team 2.0 has been getting a lot of traction lately. If you played any of those types of skirmish-based miniatures games, you know exactly what to expect when it comes to scenario play in these types of games, and that's what I'm looking for here. So I'm going to outline the specifics in tomorrow's update, so hang on there. And hopefully, this is your kind of thing, because scenarios are one of the things that I love most about miniatures wargaming. I love scenario booklets. I love having unique ways. We get back to this, and this has become you're beginning to see what kind of player I am when it comes to tabletop games. But scenarios get people playing games in ways that they would not normally play. So I'm wanting to do that for Embryo Machine. Now, the game is going to come with three missions, which are basically scenarios. We're just calling them missions. But I want more than that, and I hope, regardless of who wins the fan contest or whatever, I hope that once the game comes out, that the community rallies behind the product and continues to kind of produce their own community-based content for the game, especially when it comes to scenarios and the like, because I love that kind of thing. I would love to see someone put together a campaign. I think that'd be super cool. I'd love to see battle reports. God, I hope I see battle reports. So that's where we're at with Embryo. The files go to the printer to get our first round of production samples this month. Yeah, this month. So it's crazy to think that that's where we're at right now with Embryo Machine. But that's where we're at right now with Embryo Machine. It's super exciting. I can't wait to get production demos of that game. I don't know why I'm particularly excited about Embryo Machine. I mean, I'm always excited to get demo copies of any game just to see, like, hey, what's this actually going to look like? Because no matter what you think the game is going to look like in your head, it might be different when you actually hold it in your hands for the first time. And I'm really excited to see Embryo because we are going to be going with probably a slightly bigger box than what the Japanese copy launched with. And it'll be nice to kind of see our take on that game's presentation. So I'm excited for that. Will you give us a taste of the missions to avoid duplication? I might give you some... That's a good question, Rogue. I might give you some general stuff. I want to save what those missions are for when you get the game. So if you've watched any of these shows, if you've listened to me talk at any length, you know that I like to save special stuff to surprise people when they finally get their actual games in hand. I think getting your physical game from a Kickstarter is a very special day, and I like to try to make it all the more special by including things that people have not seen or things that people have not been told were coming in the box, or changes to a game that people were not told about but were made for the better. And so I like that element of surprise. And so I'm a little hesitant to want to give out what those mission deets are. But I guess I could maybe talk about them in vague generalities. But at the same time, there's no way that someone is going to write the same exact scenario or mission that the designers wrote. I mean, there's just that's not going to happen. Because no two humans think perfectly alike. Now, there might be like, oh, it's a similar game mode. Like, okay, it's a King of the Hill type thing, and I'm submitting this King of the Hill type fan contest application or submission. Okay, well, it doesn't matter if it's this, like, I don't care if there are like two King of the Hill scenarios, but how you approach that King of the Hill scenario is going to probably be vastly different, but absolutely, at minimum, just different than how the designers are going to approach it. So. and Fern, you make a really good point. If you accidentally copy a mission and it's the same as the designers, then I'm going to be contacting you in private to say, like, hey, how can we work together on the next Embryo Machine game? So maybe you want that to happen. Can I request card number 003? Are you talking about the LionWing collector's card, Rogue? I'm assuming so. That could be like, that's the only thing you could be talking about, right? For those who did not order Wild Hunt Festival, we included 2 collector's cards. Well, there are 2 collector's cards out there in the wild. One of the 2 was randomly placed in every copy of the game. And so we wanted to add a little like collectible element to LionWing games. And so we introduced this idea of the collectible card, starting with Wild Hunt Festival. So there's 2 variants that you can get in that game, 001 and 002. Different illustrations, different presentations. I think it's I think it's fair to say that, you'll at least get one for Embryo Machine. You'll at least get one. I don't want to say too much about the collector's cards, other than I love the collector's cards, and I'm sorry if you have FOMO and like the collector's card thing just drives you bonkers, because it's like, how the hell am I ever going to get the second one? But I love that kind of thing, and so there's a little bit of me coming out in the game. I apologize. Picaresque, not too much to update there other than we launch now in less than 2 weeks, which is cool, exciting, of course, always nerve-wracking. If you're not nervous before a Kickstarter, you're probably doing it wrong. That probably speaks to you are underprepared and you don't know it, or you're overconfident. And I don't know if being overconfident ever leads to anything good when it comes to Kickstarter prep and Kickstarter launches and Kickstarter delivery. So I think you should always be a little nervous, and I absolutely am for this, especially because we've never touched TRPGs before, and so this is new. I mean, if you haven't noticed so far, every LionWing game kind of doesn't feel different from let me rephrase that. Each LionWing game feels different from the last, other than Testament and Wild Hunt Festival, both being boss battlers. Even they felt different. So every game kind of feels different. So it was important for me that for our next game we do something different. And I went really different with Picaresque, and thus we've got a tabletop role-playing game. So I'm excited because we've never done a tabletop role-playing game. I'm nervous because we've never done a tabletop role-playing game. I think it is our sleekest campaign, without question. Without question. I think it is probably our sleekest presentation in terms of like game presentation. I think it's our tightest localization. I think it's probably our best play tested. I think it has some of the most substantial stretch goals. And I feel like most of our stretch goals are pretty damn substantial. Like, I really take pride in LionWing stretch goals. Really, really take pride and put a lot of thought into those stretch goals. So to say that this, I think, has some of the more substantial stretch goals probably says something. I think it says something anyway. I hope it says something. And while I am nervous, I'm more excited than I am nervous, because I want people to see this game. I want people to experience this game. We've gotten a lot of good feedback on this game. If for nothing else than because visually it presents extremely well. It's such a striking game. Just its art style, its use of colors or lack thereof, the layout of the book, which Winona just knocked out of the park. Just really excited for people to finally see this book. We are offering a 15-page sampler on the Kickstarter page, so you'll be able to get a flavor of what the book is like. It's going to show you everything you want to see. I mean, not everything you want to see, because of course you probably want to see everything in the book, but it'll give you a glimpse at everything you need to see to make an informed decision if it's your type of game. And I'm excited because we launch on a Tuesday, of course. The following day, on Wednesday, we're going to be holding a special LionWing talk stream where Winona and I go through what it was like to localize the game. We did this with Gun and Gun. We're doing it again with Picaresque, and we're going to be doing that on that Wednesday. And then the following Wednesday, we've got a little something special planned too, which is going to be cool. And so we got a lot of irons in the fire with Picaresque, which again goes back to the idea that I think we may have lost connection there for a minute. But for those watching on playback, you're unaffected, so it doesn't matter for you. There's just a lot happening with Picaresque, which is why I said like we're a little bit in like a crunch mode right now, but it feels good. I feel like we're in a really, really good place with that game. And yeah, excited to see the turnout for it. I haven't been keeping up on the chat, so let me go back a little bit. Sai asked, are those also in the non-Kickstarter copies? He's asking about the collector's cards. Yes, the collector's cards are in all copies of the game. You're tempting me to buy another copy of Kradia. So the Kradia collector's card art is Legit. So a big thing about the collector's cards, if I haven't already said this, I don't know if I have. I probably said it on stream at some point, at least in passing. All of those cards offer art that you're not going to get. In most cases, you're not going to get elsewhere in the game. So, those two pieces of art for 001 and 002 in Wild Hunt Festival are nowhere else in the game, which I like that kind of thing. Now, invariably there'll be times when like there's some art that we use from a game asset, but like the art's so good we couldn't help ourselves but to use it and kind of reformat it. So that will happen, but generally speaking, you're getting this either new art or art being presented in a way that it hasn't been presented in the game itself. And I think that makes the collector's card idea all the cooler. Not only do I think collector's cards are cool just because they're collector's cards, but if you're really offering the incentive, like, hey, I want all of them because they offer something I can't get elsewhere, then to me, that's like the epitome of a truly good collector's card. Let's see here. Fern, I thought you could get the other collector's card by participating in the guild thing. Yeah, so if you read the update, the Wild Hunt Festival update from this past weekend, then you will know that the participation prize in the Tri-Guild Challenge is the collector's card that you didn't get in the game. So if you're really into collecting those cards and you really need that other variant, well, now you've got you have your avenue. It's right in front of you. All you've got to do is sign up. Sign in the chat said, I always see Gun and EM to be closer than Wild Hunt Festival and Testament. That's probably true to some degree. I mean, Gun and EM definitely share a genre to some degree. And there's definitely a card battling element to Embryo Machine. I mean, not element. I mean, that's like one of its core components. So yeah, I think there's something to that. I don't know. I personally don't know if I see those two being closer than Wild Hunt Festival and Testament. But I'm also not like so dug into that defense that you couldn't persuade me otherwise. Let's see here. People just talking about, yes, the collector's cards and signing up to get the other one for the Tri-Guild Challenge. Let's see here. Sign up and spend multiple hours. I don't think so. Basically, each player is essentially just playing one match a week. And the matches are probably going to be about 20 minutes. So, I mean, if you don't have 20 minutes in the week, I totally understand. People are busy. People got competing priorities and people got other shit to do than like jump on to Discord and stream some Wild Hunt Festival with some stranger from across the globe, perhaps. And at the same time, if you got 20 minutes, then I can't think of a better way to use 20 minutes than having some fun with a game that hopefully you like and also getting something sweet for your efforts. At least getting one thing sweet for your efforts, but maybe multiple things depending on if your guild wins. So the time commitment is low, and we made that choice specifically. We knew that there wasn't going to be as much of a desire to participate in this as much as there was a desire to participate in Operation Bulletstorm for Gun and Gun, just by the nature of the game genre of Wild Hunt Festival. So we needed to make sure that people who were willing to commit, that they didn't have to overcommit, because Operation Bulletstorm and Operation Firestrike will be the same way. Requires a little something extra, but most of the people who play Gun and Gun, at least at that level, they like that commitment. That commitment doesn't bother them. You're not always going to get those same people signing up for something like the Wild Hunt Festival League. Now, we certainly do have some people signing up who are in both. But by and large, yeah, we wanted to make sure that we lowered the barrier to entry for this because it was such kind of like a unique, strange idea. And that's why we decided, all right, one match a week, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, depending on, how you and your teammate coordinate. But I can't see it going much longer than 30 minutes. All right. Yeah, one encounter a week for 4 weeks, and then if you kick ass, you essentially get invited to that final encounter, which happens on one day, uh, and just you and your team play one encounter, and that encounter is probably not going to go longer than an hour, hour and a half. So, how many times can you fight the challenge? You mean like the final encounter, Frank? Because if you mean the final encounter, then you can fight the challenge. Um, per week. How many times? Once. Once. It's a one and done thing. So like, bring your A game. You know, don't be a slouch. Like when you show up, show up. Sigh. I like how you delivered that information in the order in which you delivered it in, because it was the last part of that paragraph that really is the real reason, I think. So you said it's mostly the lack of a fixed schedule and the inability to talk freely without disturbing the neighbors at US friendly hours, and the fact that I haven't learned the rules yet. That's probably the main reason, right? Okay. All right. So that's it for our project updates. Let's talk about some some questions. You submitted some Q's. I'm going to give you some A's. Okay. Question 1 from Sai in Discord. If Picaresque ends up being a huge success, will you shift LionWing's future plans to be more RPG focused? It's a good question, Sai. And I can see why you would ask that question. First, I would say, how I define huge success might be different from how you define huge success. So that's caveat number 1. Caveat number 2 to answering this question is, I wouldn't say that no matter the success or lack thereof of Picaresque would determine if we shift toward TRPGs. Because to shift towards something means you have to shift away from something else. And we're not shifting away from board games. I mean, even if Picaresque was this huge runaway success, we wouldn't shift away from board games. We might incorporate more TRPGs at that point, but they wouldn't become our sole focus. We wouldn't become a TRPG company. I don't see that happening. It would have to be I would have to be presented with a very, very convincing reason to shift totally to a TRPG company. Though I don't think you're asking if we're going to become an exclusive TRPG company, but more so like, would we begin to favor TRPGs over board games? Would we release more TRPGs than board games? Would our release schedule look like 4 TRPGs a year and 1 board game? And the answer is no. It wouldn't be that. Despite the fact that TRPGs, as I've mentioned many times, are my favorite tabletop genre, that wouldn't be the case. That being said, regardless of the success of Picaresque, we've already got another TRPG coming. So Picaresque was always designed as our entry point into the genre. Now, I wanted to make sure I chose a very smart game to be our first entry into the genre. That's why I chose Picaresque. I think Picaresque is a super, super strong experience. It's a strong TRPG, and it made sense to be the one to spearhead the charge. But it's opening the door. And that's been the plan all along. That's been the plan for 2 years. We've been in development on Picaresque for 2 years. So for 2 years, I've known that we're opening the gate with Picaresque. And that means incorporating more TRPGs into our catalog and in our release schedule. But we will for the foreseeable future, unless something crazy happens, which I can't foresee happening. We will continue to produce board games because although I love TRPGs and they are my favorite genre, I adore board games, right? And so since this company is mostly about me releasing games that I like, you can guarantee I'm still going to release board games. LionWing Shift is only reliant on what Bradley wants to play. That's right. Yes. Ah, yes. Noel in the chat. I haven't looked at the users in the chat for a minute. I didn't see you there, Noel. Hey, thanks for joining us. Yeah, there are a lot of TRPGs out there right now. A lot of Dojin self-published TRPGs, a lot of commercial TRPGs in Japan, a lot to choose from. And so it wasn't like Picaresque was ever going to be a one and done kind of thing. So I'm excited for what Picaresque means for future projects, for the future of the company, all that stuff. Next question. Would you be interested, if you can convince the designers, to put elements of their early designs / playtesting, like scans of the playtest cards, earlier designs that got abandoned, trivia stories, etc., as Kickstarter exclusive incentives? So it's funny you bring this up, Sai. So I didn't have this exact idea. I've never thought about including early designs, playtest ideas, concepts, etc., as a Kickstarter exclusive. But I have considered something that is fairly similar. So I've gone on record to say that the reason I got into localization was because I discovered a company called Working Designs when I was 12 years old. So that would have been in the mid to late 90s. Dragon Force was the game that got me into wanting to go into localization. Something that Working Designs always did in the back of their manuals, which were beautiful manuals if you ever owned a Working Designs games. They were full color, thick, all sorts of awesome information, but at the back of all of their manuals, they had a translation notes section, and where they would talk about their various successes, failures, obstacles, challenges, decisions that were made and confronted throughout the localization process. And they would walk folks through like, hey, this is what we came up against when we were localizing this game. Or, hey, this is a decision that we made in the localization process that wasn't in the original game. Or, hey, we tweaked the encounter rate to Albert Odyssey, and the encounter rate was, much higher in the Japanese version of Albert Odyssey. So it was this really cool kind of peek behind the curtain of what was happening behind the scenes at Working Designs. I loved those translation notes so much that anytime that I bought a Working Designs game, I would immediately open it up and not read about the character bios or the stories or how to play the game or the various games, mechanics or whatever. I would just immediately flip to the back of the book and I would read the translation notes. And I think I maybe got spoiled on a couple things a few times doing that, but I didn't care because I loved learning about what decisions they made in this process. And I love that they were letting players in on their process. And so I have thrown around the idea, in my head at least, of including sort of a localization notes, some sort of like booklet, pamphlet, something to that effect where that we would pack into the game. Or that would be exclusive to Kickstarter backers, because that is something that I think you could do as a Kickstarter exclusive that wouldn't upset too many people who didn't get in on the Kickstarter when it was live, right? So I have considered doing something like that, and I would love to do something like that, including translation notes, including meeting minutes or meeting notes. I think that is a really cool look into the process of localization. And the more I can get people interested in the process of localization, the more successful I feel like I am at this line of work. Because I think localization is a very, very fascinating business that's full of interesting decisions. And no decision in localization is ever made lightly. So you'll see all the time, and it's been happening a lot lately, at least like on Twitter, of people will always there'll always be a subset of folks who will always shit on localization. They are kind of like the pure translation folks. Like, no, I don't want localization at all in my games. I think it ruins the game. It's not authentic. It can open up doors that companies can go down that get them further off the path of what the true game's meaning was. So there are localization naysayers out there, right? But I think it's still important that we show why we made the decisions that we made in these games. Why did we make this decision that maybe you don't agree with? And it would be cool to be able to offer our localization notes that showed our meeting minutes where we were talking about that very topic, where we show like, hey, we didn't make this decision lightly. Like we went back and forth on this shit for days or weeks, or in some cases months. I think there is sometimes from the camp who aren't believers of localization, I think there's this idea that people just go into there and they just kind of write whatever they want. They take the source material and then they turn it into whatever they think that source material should be, rather than what the source material actually is. And it's like, no, like every localization team that I've ever worked on ever has never done that, like ever. Take it from the person who has been there, right? So I'd love to be able to show what the process is like, because I think a lot of people just don't know what the process is, what it could be like, what it is like. I'm not even sure most people even know what real localization is, even those who love localization companies. So I'd like to do that kind of thing. It's not exactly what you're talking about, Sai, but I think it kind of gets to the crux of what you are talking about. Okay. Got it. Retro Flow, another working design stan. What's up, Retro? I see you. Glad that LionWing takes inspiration from working designs. Super glad that LionWing doesn't follow their notorious release date delays. Yeah. I always felt so bad for working designs when it came to, especially when it came to their Sega Saturn releases, because I think the Saturn is probably what buried working designs. I mean, there were a multitude of factors working against working designs, but some of which can be directly attributed to Sony. But they really got fucked over with a couple of their Saturn releases, Albert Odyssey, and more specifically, Magic Knight Ray Earth. Magic Knight Ray Earth coming out at the end of the Saturn's life, when it had been released, 3-4 years earlier in Japan. I mean, to get saddled with that and all the issues that they had to overcome just to get that game released, and then for it to not perform well at all, it's got to be super disheartening. And that kind of thing happened to them more than just once. And when you're a niche company like Working Designs was, like, you can't have too many of those, and they had quite a number of those. Such a bummer, but I'm glad to see that someone else loves Working Designs around here. Since you're talking about extra pamphlets, is it possible you reverse your position on QR code gated FAQs? No. No, I don't think it is possible. I like QR code FAQs. I think I understand why you might not like them, and I read your reasoning behind not liking them. When people saw that there was a QR code for Wild Hunt Festival's FAQ, I saw your stance, and I didn't think, I mean, it made sense. What you said was valid, and I read it and I said, yeah, no, I get it. No, that makes sense. And I like QR codes. So, and the FAQs are, yes, hosted on our site, though I don't know if that would ease Sai's concerns, because I think Sai, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm kind of reaching into the back of my mind now to try to dig up this conversation that I wasn't a part of, but that I was watching. I think your issue was like, hey, what happens when that link goes broken in 10 years? And because I think you were rallying around the idea of like, if you are going to do a QR code, have it point toward a doc and not like a link that's hosted, because that's much easier to go dormant than otherwise. Yeah, future proofing the game. See, I don't know. To me, future proofing the game is a living doc that's always updated. That you can't achieve a living doc with like a printed off FAQ. Like I look at the FAQ in the back of Testament's manual, which by the way is obnoxiously long, right? Like in fact, we can probably blame Testament for my decision to go to QR codes for FAQs, because that FAQ in the back of Testament's manual is like, it's like fucking 8 pages. I'm like, what are we doing here? Why did I just read almost 10 pages of an FAQ in the back of this manual? And better yet, for me as the person printing the game, I'm like, why did we just waste money on printing 10 extra pages in the back of this manual on an FAQ when that's not even going to present people with the most up-to-date information? Because then we got a shit ton of questions that I had to answer and put up on an FAQ post on BGG. Questions that weren't asked in FAQ, because no matter how big your playtesting group is, your playtesting group isn't as big as your customer base. Your customer base is always going to be bigger than your playtesters. And because of that, because you have a larger sample size with your customers, you're always going to have questions that you never thought of and that your playtesting group never thought of when you were making that printed FAQ. So you ship the game with an FAQ in the box, and it's immediately obsolete. Yes, it answers questions, and they're hopefully in that FAQ, if you've done a good job, you've tackled some of the more important clarification questions, but you're never going to tackle them all. And to me, I'm like, well, what's the point then? I can just throw them all up on a living doc, and I can continue to add to this for however long I want. And I like that approach more than an outdated, immediately upon shipment, printed FAQ in a box. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could have an FAQ at release and then have a QR code as well. You absolutely could. You absolutely could. I absolutely could not. So, there you have it. It's my QR code stance. I mean, like I said, I understand the folks who want the at least a physically printed FAQ. I do get it. One second. That's not what I want. That's not what I want either. Let's do this. All right. That lighting is a little better. It's more bearable. Sai is trying to win me over. No, I mean, he makes some compelling arguments. Don't get me wrong. I think they're very valid. Okay. Next question. Would you be Fern? I'm guessing this was about the Tri Guild streaming. So, would you be against us streaming the encounters of the Tri Guild Challenge, I'm assuming, on Twitch, or putting them up on some other platform? Or do you have plans for the video? I ask because in order for me to record, I probably have to use OBS to capture video of my phone over Discord. I don't care. I don't care what you do. You can record them. You can put them up. You can not record them. You can record them, not put them up. Whatever you want to do there. I don't care. It's your play session, not mine. There might be some that we want to put up, like if players allow us to. There might be some that we might want to put up on our channel just to say, show and say like, hey, this is what we're doing. And if people are okay with us using that video, then I think that would be really cool. The one thing we absolutely are going to stream is going to be the final encounter. But definitely, I think it would be cool to post a couple of those actual encounters over the course of the 4 weeks. Maybe like one a week, I think would be cool for people to see. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. Get to the next question here. Okay. What do you think of chess? From Gregorio. I think chess is fantastic. I think chess will always have a spot at the table, at least mine. I think it is the backbone of a lot of board games, at least a lot of board games that I like. I think chess informed the type of video games that I love. You know, I love the Tactics Ogres, the Fire Emblems, the Final Fantasy Tactics of the world, and those just basically are chess with a storyline. So I love chess personally. I I wish more people liked chess. I think chess has a bad reputation for being this really impenetrable game that only the best of the best, most big brain, thinky think people can play. And I think that's bullshit. I don't think that's true at all. I think anyone can play chess. I think anyone can play chess and have fun. I think people get hung up on like, oh my gosh, there's so many like movements that I have to memorize, and I don't like, how does a pawn move? I think it's a very learnable set of mechanics. And I think so long as you're willing to learn those things, you have a game that will never stop giving you entertainment. I can't say that about every board game. I don't think I can say that about most board games, but chess is that game with like infinite replayability. It really is. And I like that about it. I like that you don't have to be a board gamer to like to play a board game. Even my dad, who I think always kind of viewed like my playing games of any kind as kind of like, oh, that's silly. That's like kid stuff. Even he, I remember like in the 90s, he had a Battle Chess, if anyone remembers that, for PC. And even he couldn't get away from chess, you know? So like, to me, that's a good game. If you can get my dad playing it, which by the way, my dad looks like Steven Seagal and kind of acts like Steven Seagal. I mean, like, really looks like him, really acts like him. I think has the same hobbies. So I guess what I'm saying is Steven Seagal likes chess, and that means I like chess. Questions in the chat from Sai. Does the localization effort per Japanese character vary based on the game type? Boss battler versus competitive games versus RPG, for example. Yes, it does. I mean, because Japanese is such a contextual language, so localizing per character tabletop RPG is a very different experience than localizing per character a boss battler, for instance. Quite a different experience, in fact. Next question. Do you think or know that your business partners or potential business partners listen to LionWing Talks? I don't think they do. I mean, I think the language barrier for most is probably what prohibits them. But even if they could get around that, I'm not sure they care. I'm not sure I'm saying anything that they care enough about to want to dedicate an hour and a half of their day to listen to me talk. It'd be cool if I found out, even just one of them did. I think it'd be really cool. But I don't suspect any of them do. Do you hope they don't? No. I would like them to. I don't say anything on here that I'm embarrassed of. I don't think I've ever said anything on here that I'm embarrassed of. Maybe that's a character flaw of mine. Maybe I should be more embarrassed of the things I'm saying on here. But I haven't been. And I don't think I've revealed any trade secrets. I don't think I've said anything bad about any designers, especially the ones we've worked with. So no, I think it'd be great if they watched. They'd probably learn a little bit more about how I do business dealings, and maybe that would help them in some ways. Maybe they could, I don't know, they could squeeze a, higher royalty out of me or something if they watched. I'm not sure. Please don't be embarrassed by anything you say. It makes for better memes. Well, I don't know if anyone's memeing what I say necessarily. It seems to be just my facial expressions that people are memeing. Though I did like the memes from the, was it last week or the week before his show? Those, I always find them. I always find them funny, but those were like I laughed out loud. So when I actually lol, that's when I like something. I like that you specify on here. Where do you say the juicy stuff? You'll never know. Next question. How are you doing with all the moving, figuratively and physically, pieces and everything? Are you still able to go full steam with LionWing right now? Yeah, well, I don't really have a choice not to go full steam with LionWing, so that's the answer to that part of the question. And how I'm doing with all the moving pieces, figuratively and literally in some ways. I don't know. So actually, someone said something in response to this, where they said Bradley seems like the kind of person who thrives in a situation like this when there's tons going on, and I think that's true. I do think that I tend to be energized by problems. I tend to be energized by lots of stuff happening, which is funny because like when I'm not working, like I don't like want to do anything. Like I'm not like I'm not like a big let's go out kind of guy. I used to be when I was a younger man. I'm not any longer. Kids kind of changed that, but like when it comes to work, I wouldn't say that the more that's going on, the better. But certainly I do find that I have a certain degree of energy that I can only produce when there's like a lot of shit in front of me. That's not to say that I don't get stressed. Because I certainly get stressed. But even like the stress, I try to get out of the problem and into the solution pretty quickly. I don't like to like sit in a problem. Sometimes you need to sit in a problem. And certainly depending on the type of person, like how long you need to sit in that problem before you get into the solution is going to vary. Some people need to sit for a long time. Some people need to sit for a very short period of time. I tend to be like a short period of time and then like, all right, let's get to solving this. So I kind of like when there's a lot of moving parts, when there's a lot going on. Now, this month is a little different because it's not just like a lot going on business-wise. It's like all this other bullshit that I actually hate, like moving, and our specific moving situation of having to move everything into a storage unit, go live a place for 3 weeks, get our stuff out of a storage unit, and then move to our new house. Like, I don't like that. Like, that's the kind that does nothing for me. But even still, it's like that is just the situation. Like that is the situation in front of me. I can't change that. That is what's going to happen to me, and I can either jump in the passenger seat and ride along with what's about to happen to me, or I can try to go in a different direction, only realizing that there's nothing for me in that direction. Everything that I need is in the direction that car is going. So, yeah, I feel like I'm doing okay, other than like I'm a little bit behind on packing. My wife's like killing it with like every room. She's like, Bradley, just clean up the fucking basement. That's all I'm asking. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So, there you have it. Okay, let's see here. If I'm ever bored, Sai says, I will compile all the superlatives you use for the projects. Every project we hear you say something like the most blank of all of our projects. So when whether I'm intentionally or unintentionally hyping a project, selling a project, I make sure that I never say something that's not true. Like, some salespeople will just tell you whatever you want to hear, and it won't be true, and they don't fucking care. It's like whatever to hook you and get you interested, get you invested. Like that, they're willing to do that. That has never been me, because you can always tell when when I bullshit. Like when I try to be a bullshitter, it doesn't end well, because it's very clear what's happening. I'm very bad at hiding that. Like I would never be like a good traditional salesperson. I would never be good like selling cars, for instance, right? Because that's a skill set that I just don't have. That's not the type of sales skill set I do have. Instead, I have one where like the only thing I can tell you about is my honest belief in the product. If I'm ever not telling you it's the most something of our projects, you probably know that I'm not super interested in that project. That's a safe assumption. But you probably won't ever hear me say that, because I only choose projects that I can be 100% into. As I've mentioned before, if I'm 99% interested in a project and not 100%, that's not the game for me. I'm going to do a bad job. I'm going to do a bad job in its production. I'm going to do a bad job with its Kickstarter. I'm going to do a bad job selling it. I got to be 100% into it. So you probably won't hear me not use the superlatives that I've used thus far, because that's just me. And I connect and believe everything that I say about these games. And it's not like, oh, well, I'm telling myself something. Oops, sorry. It's not like it's not a situation where like I'm telling myself something so that I can believe it, so I can then sell it to someone else. But the thing that I believed in is actually not true. Like that's not what's happening. I try to be extremely honest with what these games are, and I try to be extremely honest about my excitement for these games. And if I'm not getting excited, if I'm not using superlatives, then it's not. Then that's probably not a good game for LionWing. Retroflow says, submitting, we've never been closer, and Steven Seagal likes chess, so I like chess for the list of Bradley superlatives. I like that. I like that list so far. Let's see here. Rogue. She, my wife, needs to play the door squeaks down on repeat to get you packing faster. Oh my God. It's so true that's how you would get me to commit to packing fully. Let's see here. Psychoanalyst so good at delving into the truth for other situations, can't not do anything but be 100%. Yeah, more psychotherapist. I'm glad you corrected yourself. I don't think I'm a psychoanalyst. Can confirm, have seen Bradley's 99% and 100% on some ideas, night and day, and that 1% and that 99% can still be glowingly positive. Oh, thanks, Noel. Appreciate that. But yes, it's true. Most people, especially if you work with me, you can see the difference between the two. Okay. No, okay. Oh, one last question. Sai asks, tea or coffee? Well, it depends on the context, Sai. It depends on the type of tea. It depends on the type of coffee. It depends on the type of day. It depends on the type of weather. It depends on my mood. It depends on what I'm looking to get out of that experience. So I hate to punt, but I don't know if I can give you an answer, because depending on the context, my answer will change. I guess if you said like, no, fuck you, you got to pick something, damn it. Don't be a fence sitter. Pick something. I would say Coffee, but only trashy coffee. I'm not talking. I don't want like Folgers. No. I don't want Folgers. If that's my coffee choice, the tea all day, twice on Sunday. But if I can choose any coffee, if I can have trash coffee, if I could have like an iced caramel, an iced caramel coffee, no whip from Dunkin', or a Java chip frappuccino from Starbucks, then if you make me choose one, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna choose that because trash coffee's real good. I like trash coffee. Bradley's 98% on Linden finishes. No, I'm not even that high on Linden finishes. I'm 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 like an 8% on Linden finishes. That's how much I hate Linden finishes. It pained me to have to put a Linden finish on those Wild Hunt Festival cards. Pained me. It pained me to even come up with that social goal. The one time where I'm like, all right, Bradley, put aside what you want. What do other people want? Oh, Linden finishes. Damn it. Rogue, yeah. No, Linden goes right into the trash for me. You know what I hate more than Linden finish on cards? A Linden finish on a fucking box. Ugh. It'll make me retch. So, I love Mosaic. I think Mosaic is fantastic. The designers behind Embryo Machine, the board game. I love how they presented the game. This box right here. It's a Linden box. What are you guys doing? Instead of coffee, it should have been sleeves or linen. It should. Ooh, don't make me choose. Don't make me choose. Oh, if I had to choose, do I sleeve cards or do I put a linen finish on a card? This is like, do you want to walk out in front of a train or do you want to walk out in front of a semi truck? Because I hate both outcomes here. I think I think I'd rather sleeve a card. Oh, I feel lightheaded saying that. I'm gonna pass out. Yeah, I'd sleeve a card. Fern, you can buy matte sleeves. You're right. Yeah, so that absolutely validates my choice. Sleeve the card over a linen finish. Sigh. How do I ever trust your judgment if that's your view on sleeves and linen? I don't know. I don't think you can. I don't think you can. I don't draw many lines in the sand, and I've realized in life you can only die on so many hills. Linen finish might be a hill that might be one of my few hills that I will die on. I'm. I wish I could. I wish I had the vocabulary to convey how much it wounded me to put a linen finish on those Wild Hunt Festival cards, and how grossed out I am to handle those cards. Retro, I'm glad you're getting amusement out of my hatred for sleeves. It's probably my most it's probably my worst take. At least it's probably my most unpopular take, if I had to guess. To be in this industry and to hate to sleeve cards is just probably wild to most people. What can I say? I don't have a phobia of linen. I just hate it. I hate it. I don't hate many things in life. Like I don't got enough. I don't got enough room in my carry-on for hate. But fuck, if I got a little bit of room in my carry-on for hate, it's for linen cards. I feel like we need a psychotherapist to find the root of the hate of linen. No, I don't think you do, because take it from the psychotherapist. My hate of linen is that it feels and looks like garbage. That's it. That is the alpha and the omega of my hatred of linen. All right, God. I'm just droning on about my hatred for these things that everyone else loves. Will we ever get plastic cards? Actually, yeah, like true plastic cards, not that garbage that they ended up saddling me with for the Wild Hunt Festival character boards. Yeah, no, I want actual plastic cards. You know, the ones that I was led to believe that we were all going to get and then didn't. Yeah, I want those. I for sure want those. And I like acrylic cards. There's some stuff happening behind the scenes. There's some stuff happening behind the scenes for some future campaigns. Now, whether or not those things make the final cut, who's to say? But certainly there are lists that exists on the back end of things, and plastic cards, acrylic cards specifically might be on one of those lists for one of those projects. I also dislike linen cards. It's just hard to read the card itself in light. I mean, yeah, it's just such a busy finish. It's needlessly busy. Yeah. Yeah, and like so not only does it make engaging with the game harder in many ways, but for me, you know, it's that tactile feeling. Like feeling linen for me is like sliding a toothpick under your fingernail. That's how much I hate it. I would probably rather get a toothpick slid under my fingernail than touch a linen card. That's probably right. But since you gave Gun and Gun foil cards, I assume you like foil cards. Oh, fuck yeah, I do. I love foils all day. A good foil. Don't give me a bad foil. Give me a good foil. Although I'll even take a bad foil. I like foils, but like a truly like chef's kiss foil. No, now that's my love language. All right, foils are my love language. Can we have Cradia 2.0 without the linen finish? You never know. You never know. But the box, oof, I'm 1000% in the hate camp for the linen finish box. Yeah. Some people and printers will even ask me this. Actually, they asked me with Wild Hunt Festival. I remember it. They said, "Do you want us to linen the box as well?" You know, I was kind in my head, though my response to that email was like, fuck no, I don't want you to do that. Don't ever ask me that again. But I was like, no, is there any particular reason why you think we should? And they're like, a lot of companies like their boxes to match their cards. And I was like, no, all right. We're not matching those cards. I will concede on the components, because I know most people like linen finish. I will not concede with the linen on the box. Nope, ain't gonna happen. Wild Hunt Festival Director's Cut. The only change is the card finish. Yeah, yep, that's right. By the way, I think I just broke into a Macho Man Randy Savage voice there for a minute. I don't know where that came from. Rogue, you'd buy it. You'd buy the director's cut, no linen. Got it. I'll put you down on the list. We all do need more Randy Savage in our life. Absolutely. Especially that Randy Savage rap album. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we're at an hour and 35 minutes. I think it's time to maybe call it quits tonight. Do I want to talk about board game news? It's nothing that I'm dying to talk about right now. Other than there's a Masters of the Universe board game up on GameFound right now that looks pretty sick. Not gonna lie, I like me some He-Man. He-Man was a little bit before my time, but I did watch a lot of it because my brother was of the age where he liked it, so we'd like watch reruns and stuff. The game looks pretty all right. There is a solo RPG up on Kickstarter right now called Kenless. Kenless. Holy shit, man! They don't show off a lot of the game on the campaign page, which I don't love. But they talk about it a whole lot, and they do show some stuff. It's important stuff. That game looks killer. That just speaks to me, like a solo RPG. Yeah, that's good stuff. And of course, that Avatar tabletop RPG is killing it. I mean, go figure. It's Avatar. I don't think anyone's terribly shocked by that outcome, but I'm stoked. Let's see here. Linen is not only horrible to your feel, but it also cut into your gaming time tonight. Yeah, no, it did, because I went and I ranted for however long I ranted about Lennon. Oh my God, mentioning the rap album just made me die. Oh my goodness, that rap album. That was a wild time in pro wrestling. All right, I think that's it. I want to keep it to an hour and 36 minutes, and I've got some Final Fantasy 11 to play tonight, so I want to go do that. I'm gonna go grind some mobs. So it's been fun, folks. Again, if this is your first time checking us out, this happens every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard here on Twitch. Noel, 11? You emphasized yes. I said 11. I didn't even add the V onto that Roman numeral to make it 14. It is 11. Yes, I like Final Fantasy 14 a lot. I was there in the 1.0 days. But 11 was kind of like my first MMORPG and is one of my favorite games of all time. And it's super laid back. It is the perfect game to just like drink beer to. And I like doing that. Former Red Mage, awesome. Hell yeah. Red Mages are in a pretty decent spot right now. It's crazy. Final Fantasy 11 is actually it's like the community is growing. Here we are 19 years later, and the community is bigger than it's been in like the past 9 years. The pandemic accelerated its growth, which was wild. But I think all of the focus on 14 has actually drawn more people to check out like, oh, what's this other game that I can do something with in the MOG station or my Square Enix account? Or like, oh, what's this other online Final Fantasy like? And then they check it out and they realize like, this game's pretty fucking weird and arcane, and I kind of love it because of that. So it's cool seeing that game actually sort of like entering a second life of sorts. I love that as someone who adores that game. It's always cool to see cities more bustling than they have been in a long time. So very happy for Square Enix. And I think there was a time when like Square Enix was like, I don't know if this 11 thing's quite worth keeping going. It's like a 6-person team. There's 6 people that run Final Fantasy 11, 6, and then they just like pull people from various other departments of Square Enix, which is wild. That's actually documented in a recent interview. But it actually sounds like now, because it's growing, they're gonna not only like keep it around, but I think they're gonna support it in ways that they haven't in quite a while. So it's very exciting, very exciting. Let's see here. 11 had a lot of interesting ideas. It's worth checking out if you've got the time. Yeah, if you've got the time, it is a time sink. Now they've done a whole lot to not make it as much of a time sink as it was like at retail. Oh my Lord, that was insane. But But it's still a very time heavy game. Absolutely, check it out. Yeah, so so I think the 14 sub $9.99. I've got the legacy sub, so like mine's a little cheaper, and I don't know if mine's $9.99 and the regular sub is like $11.99, or if mine's like $7.99 and the regular sub is $9.99. Anyway, 14's right around that mark, right around that $10 mark. 11's like, it's $12.99. That's for one character slot. If you want another character slot, you got to pay like $1.99 a month to have a second character, or $1.99 per character a month. It's like, what? But I'm paying it. A lot of other people are paying it too. More people are paying it now than they have in like the past, however many years, 5 to 8 years. So I guess people aren't deterred by its by its costly sub. Yeah, I mostly recall hours of waiting in Valkyrie Dune parties. Yes, no, I think that's what everyone remembers from Final Fantasy XI. The people who I knew played it, we'll talk about it from time to time, and they're like, "Oh man, I remember Valkyrie Dunes." I'm like, "Of course, everyone remembers the damn dunes, because that's where you leveled from 10 to 20, and that's where you like first got all. That's when like party play first started. And if you are a white mage, so I'm a white mage, but and have been since the 1.0 days. If you're a white mage, that's when your game really started. Was the dunes. That's when you're pulling IT gobbies and fighting crabs. Oh, the dunes. Sabina is a cool little port town. I was just in Sabina last night. I played for a little bit. Anyway, all right, I'm done rhapsodizing about Vana'diel and Final Fantasy XI. And on that note, we're out of here, folks. Thanks for joining. We'll see you again next week. Take care.